the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio and streaming live on www.3cr.org.au, and it's 8:55 a.m. on the dial, and I believe it's also gone digital as well. This is the Doin' Time show. It's Marissa and together with Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hi.
Yeah, we'll be taking you through until... That's good. We'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. We've got a pretty low-key show on this evening, but first up on the show, we're going to be speaking with Anna from Queensland. She's a refugee activist. I was speaking to her off-air, and she is going to be bringing us some atrocious goings-on that are happening with asylum seekers. She'll be speaking about the ASIO laws and how they demonise asylum seekers. Anna used to work at Sherga Detention Centre, and now she's doing activism over in Cairns. She was also present yesterday at an action at Broadmeadows Detention Centre, and she gave a speech there, and she's going to give a report back on that. So let's get busy. Hello, Anna. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you. So I'm wondering if you could start off, Anna, by giving us some background of what's been going on with the ASIO and, of course, giving a report back on the action yesterday.
Certainly. Currently there are 55 people in Australia, refugees, that were accepted as refugees. All of a sudden, ASIO turned around and said, no, you're a security risk to the country. So these people have already been in detention for 3 to 4 years. Amongst them are Ranjini and her 3 children. Her third child was actually born in a detention situation.
Right. Yep.
And they have, even though there has been a High Court ruling that states it is illegal to keep people in indefinite detention, we have a government that blatantly ignores that. They have appointed an ex-judge, Margaret Stone, to do independent reviews. Those independent reviews have, so far only 6 have been completed. Out of those 6 done, the reviews are about 6 or 8 lines of very vague explanations. There's no definite accusations or examples of what these people are supposed to have done. The others are still in limbo. Now, currently there are 28 of those ASIO negative assessment refugees in MITA at Broadmeadows. They started a hunger strike as of 2 a.m. This morning. They are talking, they're very serious. It's very sad that their mental and emotional state has led to, in the action of the Labor government has led them to this. And I do hold the Labor government and Margaret Stone personally responsible for this. These people are not receiving justice. They are not being treated humanely. The way that we are treating these people like criminals, worse than criminals. Being ASIO thinks that because it's, these secret documents, nobody knows anything. And these people, without knowing what they're accused of, how on earth are they supposed to be able to defend themselves?
Now, just to put it in perspective, where are the asylum seekers from?
Most of them are Tamils.
Yep.
There is one Iranian and a couple of Burmese as well.
That's all right.
Yeah, on this show a while back, we had Aaron talking
Yes.
about the Tamil situation and how the government in Sri Lanka are labelling Tamils as, terrorists, basically.
That's right.
And now the Australian government sort of following the lead with and thinking the same under the same lines, basically.
That's exactly right, and I think, Anna, you and I were talking about that off air, weren't we?
We were. The Tamils are not terrorists, and I question where the intelligence on these people that are being denied access to Australia by ASIO, where is the intelligence coming from? Because if it's from Mahinda's government, it would be a bit like going to Hitler for intel on the Jews.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's a very good point, and it's I suppose, putting into perspective also that no one is illegal, no one should be illegal, and there should be no borders.
Absolutely.
And, you know, this is a prison show, and I want to actually not so much make a comparison, but to also say that conditions in the detention centres certainly would be far worse, wouldn't they, than in a prison? Because at least in a prison, you know when your sentence finishes.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Margaret Stone, when she visited both Mitre and Villawood last week, stated that she had no decision-making power. The decisions were up to the Attorney-General, the Minister for Immigration and the Director of ASIO. And she also stated that there is no time frame for these people to get a resolution to their solution. Now, they had really high hopes after the High Court ruling. Those hopes have been totally taken away from them.
Hence the hunger strike.
Hence the hunger strike. And they're talking mass suicides.
So, for listeners, who is Margaret Stone?
Margaret Stone is an ex-judge.
Yep.
And she was appointed by the Gillard government as the independent reviewer.
Right.
Now, she's only getting limited information from ASIO. She's not getting the full picture. So again, I have to ask, how can a proper, fair, independent review be done without the full amount of information given?
I mean, this really makes my blood boil. I mean, you know, they're talking about an independent review and all this theorising while people rot in detention.
And I'm surprised that the media, and okay, the mainstream media are nothing but Rupert Murdoch puppets, and I blame his media in particular, but I also want to give a little kick up the patushk to the other media that have an obligation to report the truth. And what people are totally missing here is that if we have a government who is blatantly disregarding and disobeying a High Court ruling, Margaret Stone is whitewash. It's the government playing at doing the right thing, and they're not doing it. What they're doing, the time that they're taking, the lack of answers and facts that they are giving to these people when they are robbing them of their life, of their freedom. These are people that did not jump on the QE2 or the Fair Star to come here. They sold everything they had to escape torture.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
They escape torture and they're being tortured here.
Yes.
Aren't they, really?
Yes, and in a crueler way, because it's a mental... We are robbing them of any hope that they ever had.
Well, they're being locked up by criminals. The asylum seekers are also being assessed by ASIO and told that they're a security risk. I mean, hey, you know, let's be honest here. This is a dictatorship. We could actually be hauled out of here now, right, as we speak. They can come into 3CR now. ASIO can come into 3CR now, raid us and tell Anna, you and Peter and I that we are terrorists. Yeah. That could happen. It could happen. Even if it is against the law, okay, that could happen because they would say that we're supporting terrorists. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're a body of their own.
But what amazes me is that all the educated people in media and activist groups, political groups are standing by. If our government thinks that they are above the law, if they think that the Australian public is stupid enough and complacent enough to let them get away with doing this. I have to ask, the subject this time is refugees, but what other freedom will they attack next? And if we let them do this, then are we living in a democracy or a dictatorship?
Yeah, so-called democracy. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And in fact, you know, something else that we were talking about off air, you know, we were discussing that the lives of the asylum seekers are not, Margaret's not helping it. The decision-making, as you were saying, Anna, is with the Attorney-General and the Minister and the Director of ASIO, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, it's ludicrous. How did you go with your speech yesterday in Broadmeadows? I mean, when you were outside the detention centre, how do you think it was received, Anna?
Look, my speech was only one of the speeches. We had Trevor Grant there, who is a fantastic activist for the refugees. He never stops. We had some fantastic musicians. They're also lending their support. We had a doctor from the Tamil community. Well, he is a Tamil. Him and his family have fled. He did a beautiful speech on how he and his family have contributed in a very, very positive way to the Australian community, as have most migrants.
Yes.
And my speech was really a speech from the heart, because I personally know a lot of those people through my 12 months at Sherga. And it was all very well received. We had SBS there and we had ABC. ABC actually gave us a decent airing on the news. SBS, if you'd blinked, you'd miss it. But at least it was something. It was more than what we had before. And truly, we're grateful for every bit of media.
Of course. And were the asylum seekers, obviously they were aware of what was happening?
Yes, they were on, people had them on phones. People actually took videos that they Facebooked them. There were lots of photos taken. I had to laugh, though. The police presence that was there yesterday, I would have thought that they were expecting 10,000 people. It was quite funny. They even had the cavalry there. So
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Describe what that means. What's a cavalry?
Well, the police on horseback, so that, right, you know, if there was any sort of a riot or whatever, they could get in between the public and push them aside. But look, we're about promoting things, resolutions and solutions in a peaceful way. We're not about violence.
Correct.
We're about humanity and the right thing being done for all people, because as I said in my speech yesterday, we have a national anthem. You know, 2 lines from that national anthem are, Australians, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. And I said then, and I'll say again now, none of us are free until all of us are free.
That's right.
That's exactly right. So in terms of, and I mean, you've given a very, very concise overview of what's happening, but I suppose Anna, we wanted to take it a little bit further. I'm wondering, like, I just wanted to kind of say that personally I'm from a migrant background myself, and I come from an Italian background, and I have a few friends that are not Australian, like they're actually Croatian, Italian, you know, so forth. And I hear a lot of these people whose parents settled here years ago saying, oh, but these people don't have any right here. You know, and it really, I don't know, it really disturbs me, you know, because I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, they came in and they had their opportunity. Do you know what I'm saying? But they're saying, but these people are illegal, and they say they call them dogs, you know. So I'm wondering if you could just demystify that a little bit and tell listeners a little bit about, you know, what do you think that means?
Well, ignorance for a start, and a very, very short memory, and that they obviously don't listen to the stories that their parents and grandparents told them about when they arrived in Australia. Irrespective of those racial views, I still believe, and I've been here 46 years, that most Australians are very decent people.
Of course.
We've had a very successful multicultural society because of that easygoing and fair go Australian attitude. But the Australian government, the ALP, Miss Gillard's mob, and Tony Abbott's mob, they're very successful manipulators, and they have started this fear campaign They want the redneck Australians, the ignorant, the racist element in our society, to believe that, they're all terrorists coming in. They're Bin Ladens, they're God knows what. They're here, they're three-headed monsters. And we've got to keep telling them, no, they're not. They're people just like you and me.
Well, I even have, I don't talk to them anymore, but I even have people saying, but Macedonians and Muslims have got square heads. Do you know what I'm saying? It's disgusting.
It is disgusting.
It really is. How can a head be square?
Yeah.
I'm laughing it's because it's stupid.
Yes,
it is. And this is what I mean. And I think you're quite right when you say that the government divides people, and like that time when that detention centre was going to be built. Where was it? Was it New South Wales? And people got upset and they didn't want the detention centre there.
Oh, but people will complain about... Look, the racist element will always complain. I think there was a mosque that was going to be built somewhere and people complained about that.
Yeah.
So, there'll always be that element in society. It's an unfortunate fact. But we can't let them get away with thinking that they're anywhere near the majority. What is happening now with this particular refugee issue is not a representation of what Australia is about.
No.
This is not. And I'm angry. I'm angry at the arrogance of the two major parties.
Yes.
Because they are, and I will remind them, in this country they are public servants. They are there to represent the people. They're not there to worry about $500 a head dinners, Armani suits or mahogany desks. And I think a lot of these politicians, their arrogance and their own PR is taking over what they're supposed to be doing.
And ASIO too. Obviously...
Absolutely. They've got to be held accountable.
They have to, because we've got to remember, and I want to draw attention again to listeners about, you were speaking before about the people who were having hunger strikes, having hunger strike in the detention centre in Broadmeadows, and how bad that is and how desperate that is.
Absolutely. To destroy somebody. Look, it would be more honest, and even though I mightn't agree with it, I would actually respect it more if Julia Gillard or Tony Abbott went and stabbed them, to end their lives, because that at least would show some mercy.
Absolutely. In case listeners have just tuned in, this is the Doin' Time Show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. You're listening to the Doin' Time Show, and we are listening to an interview with Anna, who is a refugee activist from Cairns.
Marissa and Anna, it came to mind when you were talking about your friends, past friends, Marissa, with people talking about being racist, and they're from migrant backgrounds themselves.
Sure.
That I've been watching this show called Immigration Nation on SBS, and it was really interesting. I had this guy in this, I don't know, can't remember, but he sort of brought out the White Australia policy, and he brought out, instead of having dark-skinned people to come to Australia, he immigrated, people with from the Baltic countries, like Germany and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Sort of Celts, and they're all nice and they're beautiful-looking women. They weren't fat or anything. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that's what they were saying on the show, and he was bringing out this beautiful image, and that stigma is still in Australia. That's what I believe. When I watched that, I thought, wow, this is just like happening now in some ways with asylum seekers, but it's a different sort of perspective.
It's still very much a Howard White Australia policy, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what gets me is how quickly people forget. We all sit back and we think that Hitler was a disgusting pig and a madman for what he did to the Jews. Now, we've got Mahinda that's wiped. His government has wiped out 40,000 Tamil lives, men, women and children. If any of us get on the internet, and there is no excuse these days to be ignorant because we have whatever information we want at the touch of a fingertip, we can find all this information. Now, he is being investigated for war crimes. The ambassador for Sri Lanka in Australia was the general in his army at that time. He got turned down from that position in Canada. Australia accepted him with open arms. When we had the Boycott Sri Lanka campaign that Trevor did, he actually had some of his goons rock up taking photos so that they could intimidate the Tamil people who still had families back home, right, with their safety. If you protest, do you know how many Tamils are afraid to come out and protest because they have families that they're trying to protect back home?
It's fear.
Yeah.
It's a climate of fear.
But Julia Gillard is saying these people are great. And she's sending taxpayer money. She's spending taxpayer money, sending Bishop and Carr over there to shake hands with a murderer.
Put the money into onshore processing like the Greens advocated.
But, you know, we were talking before about the government being master manipulators, right? They have also convinced that not only have they tried to demonise asylum seekers as if they weren't human, but the misinformation, the outright lies, and they've convinced the xenophobic part of our society, the racist part, that refugees are a drain on the community. I will tell you what is a drain on the community. It's these bloody detention centres. That's the drain on the community.
Exactly. And, you know, it's business as usual in the prison industrial complex, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's right.
And imagine, and I just want to point this out, you were saying before that your family migrated here. Mine did too, right? Now imagine if we rocked up or our parents rocked up and we were put in a detention centre without doing a damn thing wrong except rock up for a better life, and we're locked up and we're treated like criminals and worse. They are being treated worse than we treat animals in this country, and that cannot be acceptable.
No, look, it's definitely not acceptable. I don't think we've quite finished. What I'd really like to do is actually break it up a bit and do a bit of an announcement and then come back and talk about how we can help.
Australia is a crime scene. It's unfinished business is crime. People don't understand that it was a military exercise. It was military in the First Fleet. It was Captain James Cook. It was Captain Arthur Phillip. Right through the history of Australia, it's a military exercise. Our people have suffered greatly because the white man is not prepared to act honourably and legally. It's still the case in this country today.
This is 3CR.
CR programs provide information and analysis you won't hear in the mainstream.
Today we'll be looking at the legacy of the US war on Vietnam, on Laos.
And as far as corporate capitalism is concerned, it is the worst political and economic system that you can have.
Our laws about jailing refugees and asylum seekers are so well crafted.
Sex is not irrelevant and we like who we are, but we don't have to be imprisoned by our gender.
Become a subscriber today. Call us on 9419 8377 or visit 3cr.org.au. 3CR, the voice of dissent.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. So, Anna, we're nearing the end of the interview, but I'm wondering if you could just alert listeners to how they can help with all this.
Yes, certainly. Every bit of pressure is important. Every bit of awareness is important. So please, if you hear, and it starts right with your friends and your family, if you hear a racist comment trying to vilify or demonise a refugee or asylum seeker, jump on it. Don't stand for it. They're not boat numbers. They're not monsters. They're people. Please stress that. In the community, there's a lot that you can do. Currently, the government is releasing a whole heap of refugees into the community. They are releasing them with no work rights. So these people are being dumped into houses that have nothing in them. Not a plate, not a saucer, not a blanket, not a mattress. There are people that have gone out and paid out of their own pocket to buy. There was one Iranian woman, 5 months pregnant and sleeping on the floor. And there's actually been a person that's been good enough to go out and buy a mattress for her to sleep on. So you can help in that way in getting involved. But more importantly, protests. You know, keep the pressure up. If there's a protest, please get involved.
And I suppose, while I'm not into voting, I'm sure a lot of listeners are, and perhaps it's also good just to try and vote Green, because at least the Greens are doing a policy.
Yes.
A better policy for asylum seekers.
Yes, and thankfully they're also distancing themselves from Labor. Sarah Hanson-Young has been a champion.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's been an absolute champion, and we need politicians with a conscience. We need politicians with a heart, and we need politicians that are really going to serve the country as a whole, not self-serving people that are going to look after their corporate buddies, and the rest of us just keep getting poorer.
That's right.
There's also Grasslands, not Grasslands, sorry. The Asylum Seekers Resource Centre.
That's correct.
In the city.
There's RISE, there's AIMS. So volunteer your services, and please, if you hear of a protest, and I challenge not just refugee groups, not just but every humanitarian group, every religious group, everyone that says that they hold Christian values cannot sit there and let this happen. So get your churches involved. Yes.
Why not?
Absolutely. Well, Jesus was a refugee, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, practice what they preach.
Exactly. Exactly. So put your money where your mouth is. I want to see photos coming back to me and videos of protests that are just growing in number. Write to your members of parliament. Demand. Don't go there cap in hand. Demand that they have a humane and fair way of treating these people. Do not treat them like criminals. Do not treat them like aliens.
Exactly. And aliens, that's right. That's what America uses for people that aren't American citizens.
Thank God we're not American.
Yeah, it's true. The alien's on the paperwork when you apply for a green card. You're an alien when you go over there. So, look, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show, and it's we always honour guests that speak about asylum seekers in particular, and Indigenous issues too. But the Indigenous issue is another story, and we'll have to cover that on another show. But I know that the Indigenous people of this land are very much in solidarity with asylum seekers as well. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah, there's a passport, isn't there?
Robbie
Thorpe's got.
Yeah, Robbie Thorpe has a creator who's one of our presenters here at 3CR, organised a passport. You've got an Indigenous passport. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's a great, because they are the traditional owners. Look, I was at a protest the other day, and I heard one of the best chants ever, and that was always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Yeah.
And the government stole that from them, and corporations are trying to take the rest. So we can't let that happen either. And as traditional owners of this land, they have every right to let whoever they want in. So that's a fantastic. The passport idea is just great.
It is indeed. Anna, thank you so much for giving a report back on the action yesterday. And of course, Doing Time will be acting as a watchdog for the asylum seekers currently having a hunger strike.
Yep.
Please Google and read about the hunger strike and support them as much as you can. We can't write to them, can we?
Yes, actually, if you write to the Tamil Refugee Council, they've got a Facebook page.
Right.
There's also letters for Ranjini, so you can look that up on Facebook. Rise, CARAD. There's so many groups that you... And just write and say that these are letters in solidarity with the hunger strikers at MITRE, at Broadmeadows, the ASIO negative assessment refugees.
ASIO negative, I can't believe it.
Mm.
It's approximately 4:30 and this is a Doing Time show. Pretty soon Peter is going to enlighten us with music from his excellent collection. But in the meantime, listen to this announcement. Anna, thank you once again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. It's great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We will not negotiate with minor state of title government or anyone on our culture, on our land. You know, if people say, oh, you're going to finish up with nothing, well then so be it. But at least our hearts will tell us that we did not sell out our country and our culture and heritage for a few scungy dollars.
Subscribe to 3CR so that your dollars support Indigenous voices and the struggle for land justice.
For Aboriginal people, the greatest grief of all is seeing the country destroyed.